Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. How are you doing this evening? I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about a project that I've literally been working on for a month. Trying to get it done by the end of December. I feel really good that I actually did get it completed, so here we are to talk about it. So the project itself is something that is centered around Apple's PC Compatibility Card, which is a card that Apple released kind of in the mid-90s as a follow-up to their original DOS compatibility card for the Quadra 610, and then later for the Power Macintosh 6100. This card is actually designed for the Power Mac 4400. Let me look at my notes here. 4400, 7200, 7300, and 7220, which maybe is a European model. Who knows? Apple was kind of all over the place with their numbering back in those days. But the 4400 was sort of their one of their like clone machines and things like that. So this card has got a weird history of kind of when it came out, what it could do, and who the heck was it for? Because it was really, really expensive, especially the 12-inch version, which has a Pentium 166 built in. The 7-inch card, which I'm still looking for, if somebody's got one they want to get rid of, I think has a Cyrix processor, so it's a little bit slower. I think it's like a Cyrix like PR 133 or something like that. So it's a little bit slower compared to the Intel part, but it's still no slouch if you just want some PC compatibility with your Macintosh. But the nice thing about this is, unlike those older cards, which were kind of locked in because it's a 486 on those originals, it's kind of locked in the like Windows 3.1, DOS 6.2.2 era. And these other cards at least let you run like Windows 95, and then later with some third-party driver software on the Mac side, you could run Windows 98. So that's what I decided to kind of focus on with this project, is trying to test the limits of what you could put on there. They make it very clear that just because of the nature of the card, you can't do like NT-based operating systems. So if it has a hardware abstraction layer or anything like that, so like NT4 or Windows 2000, Windows XP, stuff like that, it's not going to work. But if you're interested in doing some like Windows 98 era gaming, then maybe it's an option. So let's stop talking about it and let's look at the card, and let me show you like some of the stuff I did. And then there's kind of a surprise at the end of the video that is some things that I did that I want to share with the community, and we'll talk about it more at the end. Hey, if you want to recreate what I've done here, get yourself a blue and white G3 Rev 2. I went ahead and I installed a SATA disk controller on this one and a SSD just to get the drive speed up. This is the card in question. This is the 12-inch PC compatibility card. I'm installing it here in slot 3. Go ahead and secure that down, and then go ahead and stitch the machine up. There you go. Now when you connect the cables, go ahead and connect to the PC card first, and then plug into your video card. Whatever you do, do not plug into the game port on that card. You will damage your monitor potentially. Go ahead and plug everything else in, and grab your USB floppy drive. Hey, so here we are. What I decided to do, since this was going to be a G3 sort of based implementation of this PC compatibility card, I went ahead and just decided to use OS 8.6. I know that G3 blue and white purists are going to say, oh, wait, that machine came with 8.5.1. But I just figure that 8.6 is sort of like the final best version of Windows 8. So we might as well do that. So anyway, I've got that installed, and I've got all the software installed as well, including the PC Setup 2, which I think is actually like 2.17, I think is like the very last version. You're going to need, if you want to do some of the things that I'm doing here, you're going to need some of this. So let's preface the conversation with what you got to do on the Mac side first. Okay, so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make sure that you install PC Compatibility 164. That's the last official Apple version. It is out there on the Garden. You can download it. It is out on the software page that actually has everything for the PC Compatibility Card. You can just go out there, download it, and install it. So that's pretty straightforward. But there was a company that actually, kind of after Apple was ending their internal support for those PC Compatibility Cards, that basically they released their own version. And again, yeah, it's 2.17. You can download that out on the Garden, and it's pretty neat because it extends compatibility for newer operating systems. Not NT-based operating systems again, but at least like the Windows 95s and the Windows 98s and things like that. So if you want to play some games and things like that, I mean, it works pretty good. Or if you've got like some software that absolutely requires Windows 98, you can do it with this. So you have to, of course, install the 1.64 first, and then you can install the PC setup secondly. And then there is this third thing that I've got right here that I'll link to in the notes that you're going to need as part of the project, and that's the Apple USB storage drivers. I think 1.35 is basically the last version that came out, and what that's going to do is that's going to actually make things like, on the Mac side, make things like flash drives and USB floppy drives and things like that work, which that USB floppy drive is really important based on something that I'm going to show you here in just a second. But that is pretty much everything that you're going to need on the Mac side. So get those 3 things installed. It will make your life much, much easier. Now on the PC side of things, you're going to need another little bit of software if you're going to do this yourself. That is called PC Setup 2.17. It's an executable file for like Windows. Basically, it's just a Windows app that extends sort of how the Windows can interact with the PC Compatibility Card, and it does some registry merges and things like that, and it adds a little application down in the task tray that is kind of like some quality of life improvements versus just doing a generic install of the operating system. What I found was the version that was out on Macintosh Garden was actually corrupt. The CRC was bad on the file, so if you tried to run it on like your your PC card machine on your Mac, it would just run, but like nothing would happen. So thanks archive.org and a whole lot of digging, I was able to find a working version of this program, and I have subsequently replaced the bad version that was out on Macintosh Garden. So if you have downloaded it elsewhere, or you have an old archived copy and you've just never played around with it, make sure you go out and download the latest version. And again, I'll have that down in the description, so that way it'll make it easy for you to find. Okay, so what the heck is with all these like disk image things that I've got here? Okay, well that's the thing I was going to tell you about. That's the present, I guess. I went through and did all the hard work, and I've created 4 different image files or drive containers that you can use with either the original 486 based DOS compatibility card for the Quadro 610 and the PowerMac 6100, or you can use some of the newer ones with the PCI based, like Pentium era DOS or PC compatibility cards. Now I will say that on this list right here, this is my original original image. I've had this out on Macintosh Garden for like 2 years now. It still works. There doesn't really need to be anything that's updated on it. It's DOS 622 plus Phil's Computer Lab, his sort of I think it's like DOS starter kit is what he calls it, but it's like a really cool sort of autoexec configsys configuration that will automatically, kind of like based on what you want to do with the machine, it'll give you like the maximum amount of extended memory or EMS or the max conventional memory, because there's a lot of those games that really get picky with kind of your memory configuration or get buggy. And so this boot menu that he's created really, really takes a lot of the guesswork out. And what I've done is modified that to add the basically like the drivers and stuff that's needed for these Apple cards. So that way you can have a mouse, you can have working Sound Blaster audio, assuming that you don't have the absolute original Houdini card, which did not have like the Sound Blaster compatibility. But all the newer ones, yeah, absolutely. You got Sound Blaster sound and stuff, so you can play Duke Nukem. You can do all kinds of fun things in DOS. But that's the original image, and that is unchanged. However, I have made a updated version of that also integrates Windows 3.11. So if you did absolutely have something from that era that you wanted to run, you could still do that. And this card will, or this drive container will also work on the original Houdini, like the one for the Quadra 610 and 6100 and all that. And then I have got these two other files that are basically Windows 98 B, so OSR2. It's a complete install OSR2. Everything is baked in. It's all ready to go. You can just take the file and just, copy it to your machine and load it up in the control panel, and away you go. And then I also did the same thing for Windows 98 Second Edition. And it's got all the drivers, and it's got everything you need, and it's got that little app and stuff that's required to do the quality of life improvements and things like that. But that's basically it. There's another file out there. We're not going to talk about that. You get your own darn games. But the rest of it is all basically set up and ready to go, so that way that you can just start playing with your card if you have one. But if you did want to set one up yourself, I figure we can maybe spend a couple of minutes talking about what you kind of need to do, because, man, it's a rigmarole. Should you want to roll your own file, a bit of advice. I would, at the very minimum, just go out and download my DOS 622 drive container, because that is going to have all of the stuff you're going to need for just having a bootable base DOS system that then you can pop in a Windows 98 CD, a Windows 95 CD, whatever, and get to the point where you can actually install your operating system. That seems to be the hardest part of this, because on the G3, ain't got no floppy drive. And it turns out that the DOS compatibility cards and the PC compatibility card absolutely require to be able to communicate with a floppy controller at boot, or otherwise it will hang. You will just get stuck at like a BIOS screen, and it won't go any further. Digging online and reading the tech notes kind of alerted me to that. So that's why you want to make sure that you install that USB software on the Mac side, so that way that you have access to USB floppy drives, so that way that you can just have one plugged in. You don't have to have a disk in or anything like that, because it's definitely not going to be smart enough to know how to boot off of USB floppy, but it will at least be able to pull the operating system and say, hey, is there a floppy drive there? Operating system says yes. PC compatibility card says that's cool, and then just keeps moving. So what I would say is, if you wanted to do this yourself for whatever reason, just for the experience of it, because it is fun. It's fun. It's a technical challenge. Who doesn't like that? What you can do is, just at a minimum, use my DOS 62 image, because it's going to get you like a bootable system. It's going to have CD-ROM drivers, things like that. And then what you can do is you can actually make a new drive file. And like, let's say we're going to make this my test. Oh, I guess I got to use the right keyboard. Test. We'll make it my test system. And just for fun, I don't have a lot of space on this drive, but if it's just going to be like DOS, I can make this like 50 megabytes, and that'll get me where I want to go. So I'll say create that. Now, if you're going to do a Windows install or something like that, obviously you probably want to make this a couple hundred megabytes. So you got space for the operating system, and you got space for whatever your software is. But that's really it. That's really it. At this point, you can go ahead and boot your machine, and I'll show you what to do next. All right, so let's go ahead and let's boot up our PC card, and I will go ahead and switch. Okay, so again, this is just like, this is probably going to be rudimentary to some of you folks, and I'm sorry, but there's some people that just don't know. So let's just go through like the basics. As you can see right in here, it kind of looks like it's hung, but that's that whole thing where it's pulling the floppy drive. If you don't have it, you will be stuck there forever, and that will be a bad time. So this is my DOS 622 image. Let's just go ahead and we'll let it load up all the stuff. So it's taking a second. I don't have a Apple ROM CD-ROM drive in there. Like, it doesn't have like the actual Apple ROM. It's just like a generic CD-ROM drive, IDE, and that's okay. It takes an extra second there. I think if you actually have like the real Apple one in, at least it was my experience when I started doing this project and then my drive failed, it was much quicker with the Apple one. So don't get wigged out and thinking that something's broke. You'll be okay. So at this point, we should be able to just go over to our D drive, get a directory on that. And there you go. There's that test drive we made up. My advice to you would be, at this point, if you pop in your Windows 95 CD, Windows 98 CD, what you can do is you can make a directory out here on your other drive. So mkdir Win95, and then I do a directory. Yeah, I've got that directory. So what you can do is you can pop your Windows 95 disk in, CD in, and then what you want to do is navigate out to the Windows 95 directory on that, and then you want to type this. You can say, like, since like E was our CD-ROM drive, you can type, I think it's xcopy. Let's get, what's the other command? It's E, right? Copies any subdirectories even if empty, right? Okay, so you would say xcopy /E /Win95. I'm not looking at the screen, so I hope I'm typing it right. Win95, and I think you can type period, but the good DOS boy in me says type star. And then we're gonna go ahead and you can make we're gonna go ahead and because it's gonna go to, remember, the D drive is that new drive we just set up, /Win95 /star, and I'm 1,000% sure you could just type period, but and then at this point you would just hit enter, and it would take a couple of minutes, and it'll copy the contents, the installer files from that Windows 95 or Windows 98 whatever CD, and it'll copy it over to the D drive. So I'm gonna hit enter, nothing's gonna happen because it's not there. So blah. No, can't read the CD. That's fine, abort. But that will copy the files out there. Okay, then what you're going to want to do, we're going to go back to our C drive, and we're going to type sys C to D. And what that's going to do is that's just going to put command.com and io.sys, which are kind of like the low-level DOS stuff that makes a drive bootable. It's going to take that from our bootable C drive, put it on our D drive, and at that point, you can just switch over to your newly created image file that now has been blessed to be bootable, and also it will have your install files for your operating system. And at that point, see, this will take just a second. Hey, system transferred. Now, I bet if we pop back out, let's go ahead and we're going to shut down our PC. Oh, crud. Sorry, grab the wrong mouse again. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to shut down our PC. And that's another thing. Like, if I go in here, I'm going to say other file, that the file's not going to show up because I've got it in use. It's tied up already because it's in this D drive slot. So we're going to say none. We'll go over here. We're going to say other. Hey, now it shows up. Great. All right. So let's switch to our PC. Let's make sure that our little file is, or our new drive container is bootable, which I have no doubt that it will be. But it'll just be like, burp. Now granted, it's not going to have CD-ROM drivers or mouse drivers or anything like that, but you're not going to really need that if you're going to do like a Windows 98 or a Windows 95 install, right? Okay, what's the date? Burp, burp, burp. There you go. There's your bootable new drive image or container. And that's really it. And at that point, you can CD space Windows 95 or Windows 98, whatever it is, and run setup.exe and install your operating system. That all takes a lot of time. It might take you 20-30 minutes just for the first step. it is just slow, and I'm not sure what to do. But my advice to you is just be patient. Don't think you know more than what the Windows install is doing, because it is, even if it looks like it's hung, it is doing something in the background. There's no drive activity light on this machine, but it's very possible that it's just doing things, and your modern sensibilities think like, oh, it's not responding, so I better restart it. I mean, you can, and it's pretty smart about recovering from situations like that. The installer will, but your best bet is to just be patient. Just be patient and let it finish up. So that's really it on that. If you want to do this on your own and you need the installers for that, you can get those in the usual places, or you could even download my image files, because at the root of the image for, or the drive container for, like Windows 95, those installer files are there. The Windows 98 one, the installer files are there. You could just literally copy them over within the Mac operating system, or you can copy them within DOS, and you should be good to go. So that's really it. It's just time consuming, but it is a fun technical challenge, and that's why I kind of decided to do this. So hopefully you'll have a little bit of fun with it too. Okay, so let's actually boot one of the drive images that I have set up, just so I can let you take a look at it. Let's pick Windows 95B, just for fun. And the booting side of this, again, because of the whole thing, at least on the blue and white G3, takes just a second while it kind of does that floppy drive check thing. But then after that, it's pretty quick. There's that wonderful Windows 95 screen, and as you can see right there, there is some stuff going on in the background. There's a sharing thing. This occasionally will happen. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I think if you switch drive images a bunch, especially if you go from like DOS to like Windows 95, things like that, it gets confused about the not being able to see like the mouse. The solution for that is really simple. You exit, you shut down. You can shut down the operating system just using the keyboard, and then you switch over to the Mac side. If you reboot the machine after a reboot, it seems to just be fixed. But it's probably good that came up, so that way that you don't think, oh, I've done all this work and it's broke. No, it's weirdness. It's driver weirdness between the PC Compatibility Card and the Mac. It slides off its cracker. So don't beat yourself up. You've done good work. So that's really it. If you look, you can see that, and you can still use shortcuts. So like Option, Control, Escape is the same as like the Windows key, and the Control key on the Mac is the same as the Alt key on the PC. So you can hit it basically does the extended stuff. So if you don't have an extended keyboard on your Mac, it'll emulate like F keys and things. So you can actually just navigate the whole thing with your keyboard if you really want to. But if you look down there in the task tray by the time, that's that application. Won't be able to get over to it because the mouse isn't working, but it basically, that is like a quick launch where it'll say like, oh, okay, like eject a CD or things like that. It'll make your CD drive pop out, or you can shut down the interface and stuff. And that's pretty neat. It'll do stuff, but that's really it. Occasionally, I've also had it like blue screen on shutdown, but man, yeah, there we go. But that's been my exact experience with like real, like Windows 95 machines. So again, it's all a little jank, just because it was always a little jank. We've forgotten the jankiness. So at this point, it's shut down. You can go ahead and you can actually shut down the machine as soon as we gain control back on the Mac side. So let's boot Windows 98 just for fun. We may have that exact same mouse issue because, again, I haven't restarted the Mac in a bit, and I've been switching between operating systems and doing crazy stuff, so it just gets confused. What are you going to do? But my card, again, this is the 12-inch card, which has the Pentium 166 processor, like a real Intel chip. It also has 16 megs of RAM built in, but I have a 64 meg like DIMM on there. So it's got 80 megs of RAM, way overkill for any kind of like DOS stuff. But if you're going to run like Windows apps or anything like that, probably it'll take advantage of that extra RAM. Again, it's running that share thing, because there's a thing where you can actually like copy paste and share stuff. Yeah, again, yeah, I really need to reboot. I really need to reboot the Mac to make that go away. But it's good that we're seeing this stuff so we can talk about it, so you don't hit that same snag and think that like your time was wasted. You just got to know the little weirdness. And again, this could just be something because of the USB controller in this machine. It could be that it's kind of a new world Mac versus like old world Macs. So you can't get too hard on yourself. So that's really it. There's Windows 98. Super exciting, right? Not really. But let me see. Command Option 4. Yep, that's the same as hitting Alt F4. And I can do it again and shut the machine down. And I think this should shut down a little more elegantly than Windows 95 did. And I think, yeah, there we go. So pretty cool, right? Okay, so that is really it for that. So there you have it. If you want to set up one of these cards, it's not terribly difficult to do so. I think it really just comes down to patience. You absolutely cannot like just set it and think that it's going to run like an install of Windows 98 like it would on a real like desktop PC of that same era. I do think it requires a little bit of patience, especially with the whole thing. If you're going to try to do it with the internal IDE, I had nothing but problems just because there's kind of some performance bottlenecks with all that, especially if you try to do this on a like a G3 machine that's got like the original motherboard that has all kinds of IDE limitations. I mean, you might be able to get around that with a SATA controller, sort of like how I did with my project, but not everybody has access to that. It seems like a lot of hardware to have to try this out, but isn't that kind of the nature of this hobby, is kind of collecting some of those old things that maybe were cost prohibitive back in the day, and now you finally get to play with them decades later and have a little bit of fun. And that's maybe really what this hobby's all about. So anyway, that's it for the moment. I want to thank everybody for spending a few minutes of your evening with me, and hopefully it maybe inspires you to take a look with your own PC compatibility card. I know there's a lot of other companies that made that type of stuff, so I'd love to see other people's projects. So put it out there, post a video, send me a link, let me know in the comments, like if you've done something similar with your own hardware. So anyway, again, that's it. So thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. And as I always say, Apple II forever.